The wind over Kruger carried more than the scent of dust and rain. It carried a name whispered through the grasslands: Zulu. To some, he was just another lion born under the crimson sun. But to those who saw him rise, he was something else, a storm in the shape of flesh and mane. Even as a young lion, Zulu defied the calm of the savannah. While others rested in the shade, he prowled restlessly under the noon heat, his golden eyes fixed on horizons only he seemed to see. There was a tension in him, a refusal to settle, as if the land itself was not yet enough. His mane grew darker with every battle, a crown forged not by age, but by conquest. By the time he reached his prime, he weighed nearly 900 pounds, a living monolith of muscle and fury. When he moved, the grass parted differently. When he stood, the air around him seemed to tighten. Rangers who saw him described a lion built for war, too large, too deliberate, too perfect for nature's fragile balance. He did not rush, he did not hesitate. Every movement carried purpose, every stare felt like a calculation. Under his command, a pride flourished. Lionesses fierce as blades, cubs born into strength, brothers who feared and followed him in equal measure. Together, they ruled a stretch of Kruger where even hyenas dared not laugh after dusk, where roars did not echo back because nothing answered them. At first, his rule brought order. Buffalo herds shifted but survived. Rival lions retreated without bloodshed. The plains adjusted, bending but not breaking. Zulu was strong, but he was also precise. Then something changed. Morning in Kruger began to feel different. Herds moved earlier than usual. Vultures circled long before kills were made. The land itself seemed restless, as if sensing pressure building beneath the surface. Zulu's pride expanded beyond its natural borders. Valleys that once belonged to others fell silent. Migration routes twisted away from his territory. Rangers whispered that wherever his paw prints appeared, the savannah held its breath. Zulu's mane darkened further, nearly black at its core, streaked with gold where the sun struck it. His eyes burned amber, not with calm authority, but with a constant fire that made even his brothers hesitate. He no longer roared to warn, he roared to command. At dawn, he led hunts that defied reason. 10 lionesses moved under his control like extensions of his will, silent, coordinated, lethal. When they surrounded buffalo herds, Zulu did not wait for the perfect moment. He made it. He struck from the front, targeting the largest bulls, collapsing formations that had stood for generations. It wasn't hunger driving him anymore. It was challenge, the need to test himself against the strongest forces the land could offer. Stories began to spread. Some claimed they saw Zulu charge straight into herds of 50 buffalo, scattering them like dry grass. Others swore he fought 2 rival males at once and left both broken in the dust. Even crocodiles near the river crossing seemed to retreat when his pride approached the banks. Zulu was no longer just a lion. He was becoming something else. But power has weight, and Kruger began to feel it. Buffalo avoided entire valleys, starving other predators. Leopards abandoned trees they had ruled for decades. Hyenas fled miles east, leaving territories empty. For the first time, the park felt smaller, not because it had shrunk, but because one lion had grown too large for it. Within the pride, devotion slowly mixed with fear. Lionesses admired his strength, but his aggression had become unpredictable. A single glance could freeze them mid-step. A low growl could turn affection into silence. Zulu was a king, but kingship had begun to isolate him. One night, under a moon so bright it turned the savannah silver, Zulu stood alone on a rocky ridge. Below him lay the remains of 3 buffalo torn apart by his pride. Yet his eyes were not on the kill. They were fixed on the horizon. Somewhere beyond it, another herd waited, another challenge called. Conquest was no longer an act, it was instinct. And as Zulu gazed into the distance, the question began to form, unspoken but heavy in the air. What happens when a king conquers everything and still feels the need to push further?
The dry season arrived without warning. One week the grass held color, the next it cracked beneath the sun. Waterholes shrank into shallow bowls of mud. The air grew sharp and heavy, pressing down on every living thing. For most predators, it was a time to slow down, to wait, to conserve strength. Zulu did the opposite. While other lions rested in the thinning shade, Zulu walked alone beneath the burning sky. His massive frame cut across the plains like a moving shadow, paws striking cracked earth that scorched the pads beneath them. Pain no longer registered the way it once had. Hunger had become secondary. What drove him now was something harder to name. Buffalo herds grew desperate as the drought deepened. Their ribs pressed against their hides, their tempers sharpened. They moved tighter, forming walls of horn and muscle meant to repel death itself. Zulu saw challenge. The first time he separated a bull on his own, the land seemed to pause. Rangers later followed the tracks, one set of enormous paw prints leading toward a single fallen giant. No signs of a coordinated hunt, no drag marks from lionesses, just Zulu, alone. From that day forward, the rhythm of the pride began to fracture. Hunts that were once precise became chaotic. Zulu no longer waited for the lionesses to circle. He surged ahead, charging through dust and confusion, forcing the pride to react rather than plan. They struggled to keep pace. Lionesses hesitated, not from weakness, but from uncertainty. His brothers followed only because turning back felt more dangerous than moving forward. Each hunt ended in blood, but also in silence, the kind that follows when something no longer feels right. Zulu's mane darkened further, thick with dust and dried blood. His ribs remained invisible beneath an armor of muscle, even as the land starved. He slept less. When he did rest, it was apart from the pride, positioned where he could see the horizon in all directions. Every roar he released shattered the night. It was no longer a call to mates or rivals. It was a declaration, a challenge thrown at the land itself. By the 3rd month of drought, Kruger began to warp around him. Buffalo herds rerouted their migrations entirely. Elephants shifted their paths to avoid his range. Hyenas abandoned entire regions, leaving valleys eerily empty. Rangers reported stretches of land where nothing moved except vultures circling above, waiting. They wrote in their notes that Zulu was no longer behaving like an apex predator. He had become an imbalance. Then came the storm. Thunder rolled across the plains like distant war drums. Lightning carved the sky open, briefly illuminating a herd of buffalo moving through the rain. 70 strong, tightly packed, dangerous even to coordinated prides. Zulu did not slow. Through wind and downpour, he stalked them, mane whipping like a living shadow. Witnesses from a distance later said it looked unreal, a single dark figure charging into chaos, lightning flashing off muscle and rain-slicked hide. The herd broke. When morning came, the storm had passed, leaving behind soaked earth and the sharp smell of blood. Rangers found signs of a violent struggle, claw marks carved deep into mud, broken grass flattened in wide arcs, and at the center of it all stood Zulu, bleeding, exhausted, victorious. He stood as the sun rose, chest heaving, mane clinging to his neck, eyes burning with something no longer recognizable as rage alone. It was defiance, wild and unyielding. That morning something shifted. Zulu had not just tested the limits of his strength, he had crossed them. And as the land slowly reclaimed its silence, one truth became unavoidable. The war Zulu was fighting was no longer against prey, rivals, or even nature itself. It was against the idea that anything, anywhere, could stop him. The change did not come suddenly. It arrived in fragments. A hunt abandoned halfway through. A lioness stepping back instead of forward. A brother turning his head away when Zulu passed. The pride that once moved as one began to drift apart, not through rebellion, but through silence. Zulu still led, but fewer followed closely now. His presence no longer inspired confidence, it inspired caution. Kills became solitary affairs. Zulu took the first strike, the first bite, the best of the carcass. He lingered over his victories as if guarding a throne made of bone and hide. Lionesses circled at a distance, waiting for permission that never came. A low growl was enough to send them retreating. What had once been unity hardened into distance. Rangers noticed it long before conflict erupted. They wrote of lionesses abandoning hunts, of brothers watching from the edges while Zulu charged ahead alone. His name, once spoken with awe, now carried an undertone of dread. Strength had not left him. Judgment had. The breaking point came on a night washed in pale moonlight near a dried riverbed. One of his younger brothers, driven by hunger and desperation, challenged him. It was not ambition that fueled the attempt, but survival. The fight was brief. Zulu did not roar. He did not hesitate. When it ended, the body lay still beneath the stars. By dawn, the pride was gone. Lionesses moved east toward the river. Cubs followed, escorted away from a land that had become too dangerous to raise them. No farewell was given, no challenge made. Zulu watched them leave. He did not pursue. From that moment on, he ruled nothing. He hunted alone. He slept alone. He roared into valleys that no longer answered. The land recovered slowly. Rains returned. Grass rose high again, covering bones and scars alike. New coalitions of young males appeared in the distance, loud and untested, claiming spaces Zulu no longer defended. He watched them from afar. Once he would have crushed them. Now he did not move. Age crept in quietly. His steps slowed. Old wounds ached beneath damp air. His mane, once thick and violent with color, darkened with dust and time. Yet even diminished, he remained formidable. Hyenas that tested him paid dearly. Buffalo still broke formation when his silhouette appeared on the horizon. But the war was gone. What remained was endurance.
Rangers began to call him the Phantom of Kruger, a massive scarred lion glimpsed only at dawn or dusk, moving through territory that no longer belonged to anyone. He was not driven out, he simply stayed behind. In his final seasons, Zulu no longer sought conquest. He walked familiar paths, rested beneath the same acacia trees, drank from shrinking pools with no urgency. When storms came, he did not rise to meet them. He endured them. No one recorded his final hunt. No camera captured his last breath. The savannah did not mark the moment. One day, his tracks stopped appearing, and that was how it ended. Not with thunder, not with battle, but with absence. Zulu did not leave a pride behind. He left a memory, a reminder carved into the land itself that power without balance bends toward isolation, and that even the fiercest storms must eventually pass. The wind still moves over Kruger, and sometimes when it carries dust and rain just right, it carries a name with it. Zulu, not as a king, but as a lesson the savannah will never forget.